And welcome back to Jeff Koinange live at the Strathmore Business School, Strathmore University. The bench on the road, just hours before U.S. President Barack Obama touches down as the first ever sitting U.S. president to make a visit to Kenya. On the bench with me today, Dr. PLO Lumumba, the man with all the English. Make sure you get your dictionary checked, and I see all your tweets are quoting PLO saying, the grass that never grew. And of course, Barack, yes, the other Barack with the 2 R's, Muluka, the man from Emmanuel, also in the house. We're breaking
now you know how to get
I'm saying it right now, eh?
Yes.
Emmanuel.
Good.
Tweets, let me just read a couple. Okay. Joaquim Buru is saying, Kenyans may be easily excitable, but have a short memory too. Come next week, Obama mania will be a far memory. Interesting. Milton Nyakundi asks, my question, how do we tap into the opportunity that Barack Obama's visit brings? Okay.
Good question.
And Alex Owiti calls himself the gladiator. You say, Moto Kama Pasi. All flights from Kisumu are booked. The great Luo migration is happening.
Flights booked to where?
Since he's not going to Kogelo, they're coming to him.
So if they don't see him,
Doesn't come
go to
Muhammad. Vice versa. All right. You heard the wish list, PLO, if you were the president. Security, high.
Yeah, I think that is a legitimate.
And you've alluded to that many times. We paid the brunt of the 1998 bombing of the U.S. Embassy and have been paying since.
Yes.
What more can they do? We are doing as much as we can. We've dropped the ball several times. What more help can we get?
I think there is a sense in which the United States of America has dealt with this quite often. So in terms of intelligence sharing, I think that is very important. I believe that in terms of training our personnel to deal with these security situations, in terms of the provision or acquisition of equipment that we can use in the fight against terrorism, the use of drones, and these are the kind of things that we need. Remember, right now, almost 62% of our territory is not accessible in the manner that we would want post-Garissa. So I think that terrorism and the fight against terrorism in the Horn of Africa is very important. Remember, and this is something that we don't say as often as we should, we are the natural leaders economically in this region, but that is being eroded because of terrorism. So I think that that is very important. The other thing that I think is in terms of our trade balance, and I think we export primary goods to the United States of America, and I think that we could do better in that regard. And I believe that if we expanded and saw that in the context of East Africa, I keep on reminding people that the economy of Washington, D.C., their GDP last year is 105 billion US dollars. That is twice the size of the Kenyan economy. And therefore we only make sense to the United States of America if we think East Africa and we think about a population of 300 million. And that is why I can't agree with Barack more that we should ask ourselves, how can we, in the context of East Africa, when we talk AGOA, growth opportunities, how can we tap into AGOA as East Africa? When we talk about power generation, will the government of the United States of America support Ketraco, for example? We now know that in order to talk about true industrialization, we need no less than 5,000 megawatts. Can they help us in that regard in terms of hydro, nuclear, and geothermal? That is something that we should do. Another thing that we should be talking about, we shouldn't talk about direct flights, passenger flight. We should be talking cargo. How many people are going to go to the United States with the visa problem? Let's talk cargo. Let's talk East Africa. So there are a number of things which I hope President Kenyatta, when he's talking about these and talking to President Obama, will also see the wisdom of inviting President Museveni of Uganda, Kagame of Rwanda, and Kikwete of Tanzania. You may leave Nkurunziza for the moment.
For the time being.
And Salva Kiir.
Yeah, and Salva Kiir.
Let them wait.
You can also call in the president of the prime minister of Ethiopia.
Yes.
And if we do that, then the gentleman who was asking what are the opportunities, what are the young men and women going to gain after Monday, is how many U.S. investors will commit dollars and cents, so that beyond the excitement, there is something concrete that we can say that our GDP will improve 2 years down the line by 2 percentage points.
And I always say, Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn of Ethiopia, I always say Ethiopia is the linchpin in all this. 95 million people, huge economy, Ethiopia is the linchpin. But let's go back 2 years. Then Assistant Secretary of State for Africa, Johnny Carson, makes a statement. Choices have consequences. Of course, alluding to the fact that if you elect 2 suspects of the ICC, well, don't count on our help. Was that a damaging statement? Because there's a bit of bad blood that came out of that, because obviously President Uhuru,
it was not a
Ruto,
very diplomatically savvy kind of, because politics, as we say, is the art or science of the possible, and you cannot predict with any meaningful degree of precision what the outcome of any presidential election is likely to be. And we found ourselves in a situation where indeed the duo who are elected had to reflect on that statement that choices have consequences. And one of the consequences was that very quickly the new government started to buttress relationships with the East. They started going to China. There was more happening with India. And the consequences did cut across both ways. And I suspect that the United States of America has felt the consequences. And there's a sense in which one can even allow the imagination to get a little bit wild and say that this continent of Africa is undergoing a scramble. The first scramble was the scramble for slaves. The second scramble was the scramble that led to colonization. And now there's a third scramble for the continent of Africa. The Chinese have come very quietly, stealthily, and they are everywhere. You can see the French have come back. They have virtually recolonized the former French colonies. They may not be calling them colonies, but they have recolonized. The United States of America during the colonization of the 19th century did try to remain behind. They took a backseat. But now in the new economic scramble and recolonization of the continent of Africa, they're there at the forefront. Once again, it may not be called colonization, but in practice, that is what it is, because when you look at what they called imperialism, was referred to by some scientists at the highest stage of capitalism.
A rose by any other name
Is a rose.
is a rose. PLO, now that the president's case has been withdrawn, deputy president, case is still ongoing, it's not over yet. Does President Obama shake hands with Deputy President William Ruto? Is that photo op going to happen?
I think it will happen. I think it would be impolitic on the part of President Kenyatta to ignore his deputy. And I think there would be great sense and diplomacy at a certain level that really this gentleman is undergoing a process that has not been concluded. Let us give him the benefit of doubt. So I want to imagine that what is going to happen now that he has taken the decision to come to Kenya, when you choose to eat a frog, eat the whole of it. Don't say that the leg is not
eat the leg.
Yes.
Yes.
So he has chosen, he must swallow Kenya as he finds it.
Yes.
The president, who is now free of the ICC, and the deputy president, who is still incumbent. So I would not be very worried. I am quite certain that there are few Puritans within his administration that would say that Deputy President Ruto should be avoided like plague. But I would not myself think that that is a wise thing to do. He is, in the Kenyans in their wisdom,
Yeah.
chose to elect him.
Absolutely.
So when you come, you don't humiliate your hosts.
Barack, do you agree? Do you eat the whole frog?
Our people say that a rat and the tail, you cannot say they are two. That you chop off the tail and you say you have the rat and you have the tail, and that they are two. They are one and the same. So if you're meeting President Kenyatta, you meet Deputy President Ruto.
What if he's suddenly sent to Burundi to oversee the elections?
The elections are over, I think. The counting is going on. But I think
Would it be unfair?
It would be unfair. I think we have taken the view, and let's not focus too much on President Obama, of course, he's the focal point, but let's also remember that we have a global conference here, and when you have guests of that size, of that magnitude from different parts of the world, of that stature, you need everybody to have their hands on the deck. And the Deputy President would be thoroughly annoyed if you were to be told to take a flight to Burundi under the guise of observing elections, which are, of course, frowned upon by the world. He would know that this is an attempt to exclude me from the goings-on.
Yeah.
So my counsel
Yes.
to President Kenyatta, my counsel to the Americans, my counsel, please, you have chosen to come here. A good guest does not humiliate his hosts. Talking about humiliation,
Go on.
I think that we should not close all the roads. In the United States, what they should do is to release one lane.
Yeah.
And that lane is the one that the president should then use. You cannot, because the economic impact for 2 days for people who are in Korogosho, for the Mamambogas in Bama and other places, is going to be devastating.
Yeah.
And in my view, therefore, I don't think security will be compromised on the ground only, that we allowed him to close Uhuru Highway,
To close Nairobi.
Wayaki, to close down Nairobi.
Thika superhighway.
How can you possibly do that?
But it doesn't work like that, gentlemen. You know that where power goes, it is felt. And you've seen even the kinds of matters that have been hovering all over the place. You have seen the Boeing. I saw the other day at JKIA, Boeing 747 branded U.S. Air Force.
Yeah.
So he's meant to shock and awe us?
You see,
I can see Barack is shocked and awed.
I'm not shocked and awed, but let's be very practical and realistic.
If it was London, Barack, if it was
these
London,
things.
you think they'd shut London down?
Look. Let's take President Kenyatta.
Yeah.
If he were to come to visit me in my home in Emanyuria, and I told him, Mr. President, I have got two guards and 3 German shepherds.
Yeah.
The security is all right. Yeah, so don't worry about that.
Yeah.
I mean, you say you must be joking. State security would take over, because that's how power.
I would remind them that Prime Minister Renzi was here a few days ago.
Who remembers?
But,
And who remembers? And he gave us 34 billion Kenya
I would
shillings.
also,
Yes, he did.
I would also remind you that Prime Minister Olof Palme was once walking in the streets
Sweden.
in Sweden,
Yes.
and you know what happened to him. So you don't take risks about this. That this is how they do it, and
Barack, they're shutting down Nairobi.
Power behaves that way. The challenge here is for us to become powerful also, so that we can also
Survival of the fittest and the dying of the least suitable.
shut some streets somewhere in New York someday when we go there.
Yeah.
We must ask ourselves, how have we conducted our activities? At some point in the past, we had taken off. We were very respected. Perhaps they would have done what he's saying that they should do. They can't do it, because we have
No
let
power.
ourselves down.
No phone service will be cut off.
Sovereignty.
No M-Pesa.
Sovereignty.
Can you imagine
gentlemen.
M-Pesa 2.5 days or 3 days?
Yes.
That'll collapse the...
The thing which you call sovereignty is the privilege of the powerful. And those of us who are weak enjoy and exercise that which we call sovereignty at the will and mercy of the powerful. The powerful.
My goodness. It's going to take us a while, PLO.
Because as long as we are disunited, as we are... Nkrumah was so right.
50 years ago.
50 years ago he said, unite now so that you make sense to the world. Divided as we are with an economy that is smaller than the advertisement budget of Coca-Cola, that will happen to us. But we are still the strongest economy in East Africa. We must never forget that.
For now.
For now.
Gentlemen, let's take another
Taller
break.
than the other dwarfs.
Still dwarfs, because a race of tortoises is still a race of tortoises. Even if one tortoise wins,
Yes.
it's still a race of tortoises.
Right. But you know, these days they say vertically challenged. They don't say dwarfs.
Oh, yeah. Now let's call a spade a spade.
We're going to take another break, come back, talk going forward. We haven't talked about the hangover.
Indeed.
The hangover. What happens once Barack Obama is airborne onto Ethiopia and, back to America? Let's take a break. At Barack M, I'm going to read more tweets. At Koinange Jeff, the hashtag we're using tonight is Obama Mania. We're calling it like we see it. Who better than the best political tag team on TV? Jeff Koinange live, coming to you from the Strathmore Business School at Strathmore University, takes another break. We'll be back in a moment.